Hey, boys and girls. I know it's late. I had a long meeting this morning with Cordova Middle School. So I didn't get to read it till now. So I'm going to read chapter 4 pretty quickly. So listen, okay? Put on the light. All right. Sam Dawkins, 5th grade. This is December. Progressing through the year. So Britton keeps asking me if I want to play chess with him, and I keep saying no because I know he'd beat the snot out of me, and I don't like losing. But I did think the game was cool, and my dad said he'd teach me how to play. He wasn't an expert or anything, but he was pretty good. So Dad says, "You want to play a game?" And I say, "Okay." And he says I could be white because white goes first, and I'm a beginner. I didn't really know what to do. For my opening move, I pushed the pawn in front of my right knight 2 squares forward. Dad moves the pawn in front of his king 2 squares forward. This didn't look so hard. So I moved the pawn in front of my right bishop forward 1 square. Then Dad slides his queen diagonally all the way to the edge of the board and he says, "Checkmate." I say, "What?" He says, "You heard me. Checkmate." I asked him how he could checkmate me in just 2 moves, and he says, "Look at your king." So I look at my king. He's right. My king can't go anywhere. He's stuck. 2 stinking moves, and my king was a dead man. The game was over. I say to myself, he's never going to do that to me again. And we got a picture of a chess, if you've never seen a chess game. I've never played it, to be honest. Played checkers all the time, not chess. All right, Brenton. I never thought Belch, remember that's the homework machine, was such a big deal, the way the others did. It was just a tool to make a job easier, like a hammer or a screwdriver. It never interested me very much. What interests me? I'll tell you what interests me. When a whole bunch of people all start doing the same thing at the same time for no apparent reason. That interests me. It's psychology, I guess. I found it fascinating that all the boys would suddenly come to school wearing backward baseball caps, or that all girls would start wearing ankle bracelets or ponytails. Why? Those things have to start somewhere, right? Somebody somewhere has to be the first one to do something. I thought it would be interesting to create a fad. So I designed this software program. It was fairly simple. It took the words "wear red socks to school on Thursday" and duplicated it and inserted it randomly into documents. I guess you'd call it a virus because I sort of let it loose all over the internet and people passed it around. I didn't tell anyone at school about it. I just did it for fun of it. Kelsey. I was in a chat room one night and somebody said something about wearing red socks to school. It sounded like a cool idea and everybody said they would do it. And we'd all tell our friends to do it too. Miss Rasmussen, 5th grade teacher, of course. Every so often we have a funny hair day or a silly hat day at school. But when I came in one Thursday, just about every student in class was wearing red socks. In fact, just about every student in the whole school was wearing red socks. That was curious. I didn't recall receiving a memo about it or a flyer that was sent home to the kids in the kids' backpack. It couldn't have been merely a coincidence. So I asked the kids why they were wearing red socks, and they said somebody sent them an email or an instant message, or they read it on the internet. When I came home that night, I turned on the TV news. There was a report that kids all over America had worn red socks to school. That's great. It didn't mean anything. It was just for the fun of it. There was only one student in my class who, I noticed, wasn't wearing red socks that day. Guess who it was? Britton, because he started the thing on the internet. Sam or Snick. Sure, I wore red socks. Everybody did, except for Brenton. I figured, of course not. Britton's out of it. He probably didn't get the word, and he's the one that sent the word. Judy, we were over at Brenton's house doing our homework after school that day. I remember we were talking about the whole red socks thing while waiting for the printer to finish. Everybody had on red socks except for Brenton, so I asked him why he didn't wear red socks. I figured he'd just never pay attention to fashion or things like that. But he made this cute little smile, and he knew something was up. We knew something was up because he doesn't usually smile that much. We made him tell us, and he admitted that he was the one who started the whole Red Sox fad in the first place. Can you imagine? Snick. The Red Sox thing blew my mind. Think of it. This one kid took his computer and with a few keystrokes got just about everybody in America to do this dumb thing. It was cool. And that kid was sitting next to me. Think of the power. He could make every kid in America hop backward and recite the Pledge of Allegiance if he wanted to. Kelsey, I remember the night of Red Sox Day. Everybody online was chatting about how cool it was. I couldn't resist. I told everybody I knew the guy who started the whole thing. I didn't mention Brenton's name. Right away, I got an IM from a guy asking me who pulled off Red Sox Day. I didn't tell him. I didn't think Brenton wanted everybody to know. The guy gave me his name and email address in case I changed my mind. Guess who it was? The name was Milner. Something's up with this Milner. Judy. One of the nicest things about Belch was that I had more time for school after school. I asked my mom if I could take a ballet class on Wednesdays, and she said sure, as long as I still had time to do my homework. Before we had Belch, I spent just about every day after school doing my homework. There was no time for anything. Sam or Snick. Sometimes when I was sitting at home playing video games or watching TV or just hanging out, I would think about the other saps in my class who were doing homework right then. Ha! Suckers! This is life. I felt like I won the lottery or something. Ronnie. Who is this? Ronnie. Teotwaki. This is some new guy talking. I had been watching those D-Squad jerks from across the room. I knew something was up way back in December. One day, I saw Snickwad, who is relatively cool, walking home from school with that dweeb, Brenton Damagotchi. What was up with that? No way the two of them could be friends. Not in a million years. It didn't make sense. I was suspicious. Something was up. I just didn't know what. Judy, I thought that I would just try Brenton's machine a few times and then go back to doing my homework the old-fashioned way. But I realized that I liked not having to work so hard on my homework. I liked the extra free time I had. It was so easy to just slip the homework assignment into the scanner and watch the finished homework come out the other end a few minutes later. It was like microwave popcorn. My mom told me that when she was a girl, they'd pop popcorn in a big pot on the stove with oil, and it was greasy and hard to clean up. Now she makes popcorn in the microwave, and she says she would never go back to the old way. That was how I started feeling about the homework machine. Sam Snick. My dad said that if we played a game of chess every night, I would get better and better. So we started playing every night. The first thing Dad told me is that wars aren't won or lost because of guns and soldiers and shooting. They're won or lost because of strategy. He said the way to win is to build a strong position by slowly accumulating advantages. Like, you want to try to control the 4 squares in the center of the board. It was little things like that, stuff you don't normally think of. Like when your king is in the middle of the board, he has 8 squares he can escape to, but when he's at the edge of the board, he has just 5 squares he can escape to. And if he's in the corner, he only has 3 squares. He's just about dead. Kelsey. I was hanging around doing nothing, and my mother starts in giving me a hard time. When are you going to do your homework, Kelsey? And all that. So I told her I did it already over at Brenton's house. Well, she doesn't believe me, of course. She says, if you're lying, you're grounded, young lady. So I showed her my homework, and she looks at it over carefully. Finally, she said I did a good job, and if I kept it up like that, she would let me pierce my belly button. Ha! It was great. Brenton. After we finished doing everyone's homework, they went home. they didn't usually hang around, and that was fine with me. I had my own projects to work on. Every so often, I would ask Nick if he wanted to play a game of chess, but he always turned me down. He said he had a dentist appointment or he wasn't feeling well or something. I knew it was just an excuse. He didn't like me enough to get together unless we were doing our homework. That was fine. As I said, I really don't need or have time for friends, but it did please my mother to think they were my friends, and I like to please my mother. After a while, I stopped asking Snick to play. Judy. Every so often, I would stay after we finished our homework. Unlike most boys, you can talk to Brenton about things other than sports and motorcycles and dumb things like that. I could bring up something about, say, classical music or politics, and he would be able to discuss it. Nobody else was like that. Brenton knows about everything. He's like an encyclopedia. Miss Rasmussen. It was getting close to the holidays, and I noticed that the kids in the D Squad were doing remarkably well. I certainly expected it from Brenton and Judy, but Sam and Kelsey were working on A's in all their subjects, which was a surprise. Their parents thought I was a miracle worker. In the back of my mind, I suspected that Sam and Kelsey might be copying off of Brenton's and Judy's. But I wanted to believe that all my lessons about hard work were starting to pay off. Now, of course, I realized I was just fooling myself. Kelsey's mom. When Kelsey brought home her end-of-year report card with all A's and B's on it, I just about fell off my chair. She had always been a C student. I figured had to be some kind of mistake. I thought Miss Rasmussen switched the report cards around or something. Kelsey. My mom said that because my report card was so good, I could get my belly button pierced. We drove over to the place, but I chickened out at the last minute. It was too scary. I couldn't go through with it. Snick. So I thought of a great idea. You know how McDonald's and Burger King and all those other fast food joints are in just about every town? Well, what if there was a Belch in every town? Kids could go there after school to get their homework done. That would be cool. Kids could ride on their own bikes, drop off their homework assignment at the first window, and then ride up to the second window a few minutes later to pick up their finished homework. We could call it the McHomework. Just think of it. There are 1 million kids in the United States. If each of those kids paid $1 a day to get their homework done, we would be rich. We would be richer than Bill Gates. Judy Douglas. Snick told us about his harebrained idea to franchise Belch and have kids ride their bikes up to the drive-through window like it was a fast food restaurant. I told him he was out of his mind. If any parents ever found out about Belch, it would be all over. Nobody would ever let their kids go to a place like that. He admitted I was right and said, well, it was just a good idea while it lasted. Yeah, and it lasted about 3 minutes. I also reminded him that we had a pact to keep the whole thing a secret. Brenton. Sometime in October, I noticed a subtle shift in the way the other students were acting toward me. It appeared that they were no longer calling me dork or nerd or geek, and they had started to refer to me as dude. It was difficult to explain. I certainly had not changed. The only difference in my life, as far as I could see, was that I was often in the company of Snick. So my hypothesis was that the other kids thought I was cool because I was with someone who they perceived to be cool. I had become cool by association. This was easy to test using the scientific method. I had been compiling data for months. When I plugged it into the computer, the results confirmed my hypothesis. And there's his data he plugged in. I showed my graph to Snick, and he laughed and said, I think if you ask me, you're still a dork. Dork, 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 dork. I believe that will change the results of my experiment. Snick. I couldn't stop thinking about Red Sox Day and how cool it was, so I tell the others we should start a fad, and they say, what kind of fad? And I say, I don't know, something really stupid. I say, so I don't know, something really stupid. We start batting around some ideas like green sock day or pink sock day or no sock day, and they all sound lame. Been there, done that. I say we could do a thing where every time Miss Rasmussen says the word class, we all drop a pencil on the floor or something like that. But Judy gets all bent out of shape because she thinks we'll get in trouble. Kelsey says we should do something really twisted, and I think it was Brenton who said she always thought it would be interesting if everybody came to school wearing our clothes inside out. No harm in that. We all agree that would be the greatest. So Brenton does this thing with the computer like last time, and we go home. The next day, like every kid in America comes to school with their clothes inside out. It was awesome. Miss Rasmussen. It was the last day of school before Christmas vacation, I believe. I walked into class and they were all just sitting there with their hands folded in their desk, grinning little grins. Then I noticed their clothes. Judy. Miss Rasmussen just stood there and looked at us. Then she said she had to go to the office. I thought for sure that we were all going to be in big trouble. Maybe we would all be suspended. It was going to totally ruin the holidays. A few minutes later, she walked back in the class and she was wearing her clothes inside out. It was the greatest. She's pretty cool for a teacher. We gave her a standing ovation. Kelsey. After Inside Out Day, I got an IM from the Milner guy. Who is this guy? He asked me if the same kid who started Red Sox Day had anything to do with Inside Out Day. He was creeping me out. I told him it was none of his business, and if I ever heard from him again, I would call the police. I also said my dad would find him and beat him up. So he types back, Kelsey, you don't have a dad. Oh my gosh. Spooky. How did he know I didn't have a dad? How did he know my name was Kelsey? That really creeped me out. I was going to tell everybody about it, but then all that stuff happened with Snick's dad. We'll have to read Monday to find out what's going on with Snick's dad. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.